Welcome to Jimbo's Garage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the shop. Well, today's video, we're going to be making a 5-gallon water bottle cart. Now here in Southern California, or pretty much all over the country, there's companies that provide service to deliver bottled water to residences and commercial people. And for us, we have a big family. We have a family of 7 here in the house, and we go through a lot of bottled water. Our current situation is about every 2 weeks the service delivers. They pick up the empties and they deliver the full bottles, and we're always setting these bottles out on the front porch, and it's just a really unorganized situation. So I thought what would be better is if I made a cart, be able to put the empties in the cart, the service could come remove those, put the full bottles in, and then I can wheel this cart to a more accessible location for us. So for those of you guys who don't know, this is what they look like right here. So let's build a cart for these guys. Let's get started on today's video. All right, so I've got some drawings right here that's gonna maybe help you to understand. Actually, I've got these plans available. I'm gonna have them available on my website. I'm actually making a 4-cart, and then I've got a client that's looking for a 9-cart. So I'm gonna have all full detailed plans for both of these available on the website. So here is the 4-cart. This is something like what we're gonna do. I'm giving you some idea of what it's gonna look like. This will be the 9-cart. That will also be available as well, holding 9 bottles of water. So here it is. This right here is what we're gonna be building. A couple of things here. There is a detail, I'm gonna show you that here in a minute, for the handle that is 2 or 3 different options, and I'll show you which option we're going to be going with there. This is going to be a 5-inch wheel on this, and then this little purple thing you see here is actually a jig that's designed to line up the perfect angle right here. As you're building this, you set these jigs in here, and then when you tack them, you move them forward to here, and it just sets the perfect angle. It makes things a lot easier. And that's the way we're going to be doing that as well. A couple of different angles of what it's going to be looking like. And then and here's the detail for the jig. This will be made out of 1/8 inch by 2-inch flat bar stock. Anyways, that's the way that's going to look like. And then this is the handle detail right here. Like I said, there's a couple of different options. I'm not going to go with this round tube. I can't bend this tight of a radius here in my shop with this round tube. This is a square tube option, is another option. All right, so this is the detail that I think I'm going to be going with, is going to be this right here, the square tube to the round handle. I think it's just going to be a better option for me. All right, well, that said, and a good look at the plans right here. This is what we're going to be doing. Let's get started on this project. All right, well, this pile just keeps growing. It doesn't get any smaller. I keep getting more and more projects here in the shop. All right. Let's grab a couple of 1.25 inch square tube. This is what we're going to use. Let's get started with this. All right, so we're going to get started by cutting most of the material here, over here on the Evolution. You know, I'm getting a lot of people ask me, how do I like this saw? You know, I did a video on this saw earlier as a comparison with the Fine Slugger, and I'm telling you, this by far is my favorite. I've used a lot of cutoff saws, but this one works the best. This is the S380 CPS. This is a 15. It has a capability of a 15-inch blade. I use the Champion Brute RZR 14-inch carbide blade on here, and it works really well. You can see just cutting all the 45s and all the straight pieces, getting everything, getting most of the pieces cut. Now there's a lot of components to this little project. It's kind of busy, and there's lots of pieces that we're going to need to build this project. So there's quite a bit of cutting going on here. So this is going to be, most of it is going to be 1.25 inch square tube 063 wall thickness, with the exception of some 1-inch round tube. You'll We'll see that here in a little bit. You can see I'm switching off from the 45 to the straight cuts, and it really is nice. I've got a couple of marks on there. You might see it in the white pencil there. Maybe you can see it when that guard goes up, but those are set at some other critical dimensions, like 22.5. That is another popular dimension that this particular saw doesn't have a notch for, but you know, that's what I use a lot. All right, so I'm looking at these plans carefully, and I'm going to start assembling the two sides right here. And I just got my table dogs in there, and I'm going to set them both up, and they're both going to be identically the same. And I'm going to need both the right side and the left side here. Once I get everything all lined up and where it needs to go, you know, I've got to think about this thing pretty thoroughly because there's lots of different steps. Now, I've never made this before. This is the first time that obviously I've made this. So what I've done here is I was just getting ready to weld that together, and I realized that I needed to put a bottom on the legs that are going to be in contact with the ground, and that is just some 1.25" flat bar stock. You see me cut that out, and now I'm welding those on. I wanted to get those welded on prior to welding the frames together because it's just going to make it that much easier for me to do now than later. So I'll just try to think about all the different things before you build. You know, just going to make it that much easier to put together, but there's a lot going on here, and you got to kind of get ahead of yourself a little bit and figure out what's best for you. So again, it's 1.25" by 1/8" flat bar stock on the bottom of the legs, and once I got those on, and then it is time to line everything up. Now I've got my table dog on the one side perfectly square, and what I'm doing is I'm going to push those legs flush to the end of my welding table. That way I know that both of them, both the right and the left side panels are going to be the same. And once I got everything in, I double check for square. I just want to be sure that everything is running nice and square. And then I'm just going to tack. Now I'm just going to go around and tack everything for right now, be sure everything stays where it needs to be, and then I will come back right here once I get them both put together and weld those out. All right, so I'm happy with that, and now it's going to go ahead and weld everything out on these frames right here. Now this will include all sides, all four sides. I don't like to leave gaps for anything. I don't like to leave any open ends. I definitely want to weld it out all the way around. And then I will come back and I will grind the sides that are visible or accessible on the outside to kind of make a smooth finish. All right, so once that's done, man, I'm just gonna go ahead, like I said, I'm gonna grind the welds that are visible, and you know, for that I'm using a Certiflame ceramic flap disc from Mercer. This is a 60 grit. This is my go-to. I use this quite a bit. You know, Mercer has a lot of different flap disc grits and different brands and styles. I have all of them. I do use all of them. But this is the go-to one for me, 60 grit. I've got 120 grit if you like more fine stuff, and they've also got a 36 grit and I believe even a 24 grit for really removing metal, some coarse grinding. And I use all of them, but this is primarily the 60 grit is primarily the go-to for me. You know, it provides it grinds everything smooth and doesn't gouge too much into the metal. In this case right here, this is going to be powder coated, so that's something you'll never see. All right, so here's something right here. This is going to be drilling for the axle. Now, I had to weld the frame together in order to drill for this axle because it's going right in the middle of the weld right here. And you know, this is again something I probably could have done prior to welding the frame together, maybe just on the L piece right here, but I've got it set up. It seems to be, everything is nice and level here, so this is going to work out pretty good. This is a 5/8 diameter hole. The axle is 5/8 diameter round bar stock, cold rolled, so it's going to be able to fit right in. And there it is together, and it's going to work. I'm just test fitting it for later on in the project. All right, now it's time to start putting this thing together. And like I had mentioned, this is going to be quite a bit to this project. A lot of detail, a lot of different cuts, and a lot of things. And again, I like a challenge. You know, I'll do anything. I've told most of my customers that I have no limits. If you tell me how you want it, I'll be glad to try to build it. And you know, it's good for me. It tests my skills, and I just love doing this kind of stuff. I'm operating off the HCP ProPulse 220 MTS. Again, I'm using 35 thousandths wire. That is what I have this machine spooled with. And 90-10 is my choice of gas. 90% argon, 10% CO2. And I run that right at about 25 CFH. You know, for me, that's what works the best for what I have. Every machine might be different. You can see this is starting to come together. I'm starting to piece all the small pieces together here. Now, this is something that I'm not going to be welding all the way out until I get farther along in this project. All right, so this is the template or the jig that is on the plans, and I made this off camera. Basically, it's some 2-inch flat bar stock accompanied with some 1-inch flat bar stock and some dimensions. And you can see by clamping that onto the frame, the horizontal pieces that you need for this just kind of go right into place. They go right on the right angle, they go right in the right location, and it's a, you know, if you're doing a bunch of these or even just one, you know, it's just a time saver. Once you have that thing set up, you can see that it's just really easy putting them in. That was one side. This is the other side right here. And they line up perfectly across from one another. One of the things you might notice by tipping that 1.25" square tube on the slight angle that we have right there, you'll see it creates a little bit of a gap on the end where it meets the side panel, and you know, that is kind of a bummer. But I'm going to end up welding all that in and filling it all in just because I can't leave gaps. Now, it might be something you don't have to do, but for me, it just I can't stand it, so I'm going to be welding all that up. Yeah, it took me a little while to figure out once I made these jigs how it all happens, but you can see that once I got it figured out, once again, it is just dropping these things in and they line up right where they're supposed to be. Just double checking for level. You know, my table is perfectly level, so anytime you put a level on anything, it's where it needs to be. All right, so this is the 1-inch round bar stock. This is 0.63 wall thickness as well, and this is what the bottles are going to be resting on. And so I've got 8 of these pieces to cut up. These were, I believe, roughly 22 inches long. All right, so just a little added twist to these bars. You know, the plans didn't call for it. I think we put this in as an option. This is something you don't have to do, but I just thought it would be nice to be able to have a nice rounded edge on the front edge of these bars, rather than having an open tube. So I just chucked up some 1-inch solid round bar stock in the lathe, and I made this radius bit a couple of years ago for a project that I did a couple of years ago, and since then I've used this thing quite a bit. So basically all it is just rounding over the edge right there, and then I'm going to come in and cut a shoulder right in here, and then bring this down to the interior diameter of the tubing. And then the idea is for this I'll cut it off and then just slide it inside the tubing, and then it'll create a nice rounded half round effect here at the end of the tubing. Now I'm going to test this one out. This is the first one with the Bird King, and just deburr a little bit, and for a test fit right on the end of the tube, and that's kind of what I was looking for right there. Then I'll ultimately weld that all the way around and then smooth that off. All right, only 7 more to go right here, and I'm going to repeat the same process. You know, I've had the Kent 1340 lathe here for probably a little over a year now, and now that I'm getting used to it, you know, for me it works out really good. I'm not a machinist, so you know, for what I use it for, it works out really good, and I'm glad I got it. It's a good option for me. It wasn't the top of the line, it wasn't the bottom of the line, it was kind of in the middle, and I figured for what I do, this will be fine, and it is. You know, once you start making these things, you know, you make one takes about 10 minutes. You know, the second one takes about 8. The third one takes about 5. And next thing you know, you can make one of these things in just a couple minutes. But by the time you get it figured out, it's all done. All right, there they all are. And then I'm just going to get those things welded out. You know, I'm going to be doing that with the AC positioner here. You know, this is from AC Precision Incorporated. I got this, you know, I've always wanted a positioner. It's something you don't use every day in the shop, but when you do need it, you need it. And, you know, this works out really good. It's a really fine tool to have. Made here in the United States. And got that, I'm not certain of the exact name of the wheel there. It's an option, and it's like a quick tight or spin tight. You can see how you can just put the part in there and just twist the wheel, and it tightens it up. It's really quick and convenient. And this worked out pretty good. I've got a little, you know, mag lock rest that I kind of made, some parts that I had left over, and you know, for resting your hand on or steadying your hand, if you will, and I find that works out pretty good. So I was gonna just go to the Bird King and just kind of round this off, and I thought, you know, I'm gonna try to chuck this up on my lathe and see if I can just kind of run this radius bit right back in through there again, and maybe it'll smooth that off. You know, this is the first go at it right here. I was taking my time because I really wasn't certain how it was going to end up, and I'm pretty pleased with the way that turned out. So I went ahead and did the rest of them all this way. Little file on the edges right there, and then a little bit of emery paper around to smooth things off, and then they hit it with a non-woven pad right here to smooth things, make it shiny. And I'm pretty pleased with the way that turned out. So I'm just going to do the same with the rest of them here and get them all done. Alright, so with them all finished up, now it's time to get them welded into place. Now I've got just a 2x4 jig. I've cut it down to the right length so that I know that when I weld both of these in, if I put them right up against the side of the rail right there, they're going to be right in the middle. And and I'm just tacking them into place right now. And I wanted to test fit it, and there it is. It works just the way it was planned. It doesn't stick past the front of the cart, and it's got a stop in the back right there. And I'm pretty happy with that. So now let's just go ahead and finish this out. You know, I can't say enough about when you're doing a project like this, or like anything really, and you've got multiple things that you're trying to put together. You know, making a jig, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to make a jig or a template, but in the long run, it's much faster and it's much easier, and things go together that much smoother. And trust me, I've done it. I've done stuff like this without that, and it just takes forever to measure. You got to measure equally and one piece at a time, and you know, just by having a jig like this or a template for the several different things we're using here, it's just that much easier. You can see, you're starting to see just how many parts are involved on this, but you know, this cart could be used. You could configure this in several different ways. If you didn't want to use it for a water bottle cart, you could maybe not put the tubes in there, or make it flat, or make a welding cart out of it or something. You can use it for anything, whatever you know works for you. You know, the basic frame, and then do whatever you need to do to make it work. I'm working on the handle right here. Now I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I was going to opt for the 45 top, and then a round tube going in it and the outside. But since then I've changed my mind a little bit, and I'm going to go with this part of it, and I'm going to weld it together. But I'm going to put a 1-inch horizontal bar connecting the two handles together, and I've included that option in the plans as well. So you're going to get a better feel for it here in just a minute. So this is what's going to be coming off the top of the cart, and then it's ultimately going to be you know, heading straight back. All right, got these things all welded, and then just trying to grind them smooth. You know, people do comment. They say, don't grind your welds, you're losing strength. You know, people say grind them. Hey, it looks good. I just been doing this my whole life. I just like a nice smooth finish. I've never had a failure with the welds. You know, you're not grinding them all. You know, the inside. I on something like this, I've left a little bit. You don't see it, but it's there's not completely ground out. All right, this is a hole saw. This is a 1-inch from Champion, and I'm just gonna drill through one side right here. So there you have a left and a right, and then that tube is gonna fit right in there. All right, I'm gonna just put some end caps on the end right here. Again, this is 1 1/4 flat bar stock. Yeah, I got that little PVC pipe on there. What's the story with that? If I have time to get this in. I was leaning against it, and the foot pedal I have is on the ground, and I was watching TV, and I was leaning against it, and I hit that foot pedal and damn near cut my arm off. And I realized that, man, I got to cover this up somehow, and that's why I put that piece of 1-inch, or piece of, yeah, it's about 1-inch PVC around there as a protector. All right, it's got the end caps all welded on, and I'm just smoothing those out. So that first cut right there on the other end is actually a 22.5. And so I also have to, on the cart itself, I'm going to have to cut that also at a 22.5. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, here's a little something that you know, I just thought it would be cool. This is the handle that's going to be going across and connecting the two, and it's just smooth pipe. And I thought, you know, what a twist it would be if I could just get my knurling tool and just put a knurl on this right here. Now, I've never tried this. I don't know how well it's going to work or not. So I just basically set it up on my lathe and then just set the auto feed, put a lot of oil in there, and I'm just hoping that by the time I get to the end, it's got a little knurl on it, something to give you a little bit of grip. I don't know. I get thinking about these things, and I don't know if it's the right thing to do or what, but I just thought it'd be pretty cool. Hey, I had to try it anyway. But it looks like so far so good. I just, like I said, I just cranked it down, hit the auto feed, and stood back. This whole process took maybe 5 minutes to go all the way through right here. And let's take a look. Well, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. And I got a little bit of grip and power on there. All right, so here's what I was saying. This is the other 22.5-inch angle. Again, after the cart's all welded together. But it's stuff like this that I didn't figure I was going to do this until after the cart was built. I had a different plan. And, I wasn't certain of the height, and I had to get the height right. So when I originally made the frame, I just kind of ran them long, which is not too long because I got lucky and cut them right at the right length. So I just finished this off with the 22, and I'm just going to clamp it together right here, and I'm going to weld to tack the backside right here. And this is going to allow me to give some adjustment to get it perfectly level. And I'm going to do the same on this one right here. Now I can move these handles up and around to get them level before I weld them out. And I did that, and then I tacked them all the way around. All right, so with the cart now pretty much complete, it now is the process of going around and catching all these welds. Now, it doesn't really look like there's much because it's such a small thing, but I'm telling you, if I counted everything up, there have to be 100 welds here. And it just took forever for me to go around this cart and weld. And just when you think you got them all, you flip the cart around and there's 3 more. And you get those, okay, you for sure I got it, and you flip the cart around, there's 3 more. And I went through this process. This probably took me a good hour to get all of these welds, especially these really thick ones here on the end. You can see that the gap it created when I tipped the 1 1/4 square tube on the angle. I stitch weld those and just kind of filled them in. They weren't the prettiest, but they were filled in, and that's what I wanted. The only thing on the very back, you can see the round tubes. I elected not to close those off just because it was a lot of work to do the front, and I just figured out the back wasn't really necessary, so I just left those alone. Here you can see that different angle. I've got the cart now on one angle, and I just keep flipping around to different angles, trying to catch all the welds. And here you can see I've got it on the back now, and going through just trying to find these last ones that I didn't get in the earlier position. All right, with all of it done, now I'm just taking the grinder and going around and smoothing off all the welds that I can that's visible anyway. You can see just some of those tall ones that I had to stitch weld there. I'm just kind of flattening those off a little bit and just welding grinding the ones that are visible. They're not perfect. It's not perfect, but I am getting all the majority of the ones that are going to be seen. And like I said, it is going to be powder coated, so it will make quite a bit of difference. Powder coat's nice and thick, and it just covers a lot of stuff. I've been doing a lot of powder coating lately versus painting, just because I've got this company that's close to me, and these guys are fairly reasonable. I mean, for me to prime and paint, it takes a lot of time and a lot of days, 24 hours between coats and stuff like that. And these guys, they sandblast, prime, and powder coat for just a little bit more than what it takes me to do it myself. And it's a much better job. All right, so with all the grinding done, I just take a non-woven pad and go around and smooth everything off. This is a good way. You know, the flap disc sometimes leaves a sharp edge especially when you're working on square tube like this, and so this non-woven pad just kind of softens all that up and cleans it all up and makes it nice and smooth. Well, finally, just about complete. There's a lot going on that right there, but we're down to the axle right here in the tires, and you can see that I'm just assembling these right here. Put them on. I'm going to go ahead and get them nice and even. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to take it over to the KBC, and I'm going to just put it in the vise. I'm going to be using a cotter pin in here, and so I'm just going to go ahead and I think it's like a 3/16 hole. Because the axle's sticking out on the very end right here, I've just got this machinist jack, and I'm just going to get it nice and level and just support it on the end. Grab a 3/16 drill bit. You know, things started getting off a little bit. I just had to straighten it up. Once I straightened it up, it was no problem getting them through. I got the holes drilled right here, and I just like to give a little added touch, so I'm just going to chamfer both sides right here. Kind of gives it a finished look. I got these cotter pins. I don't know what size, you know, so I just grabbed something that I think it's about 1.5 inches long, and they look like the ones that will work pretty good. All right, just a little bit of assembly right here, and I'm going to get the one side on. Shove it all the way through. And there it is. Well, that thing is complete. I'll get it over to the powder coaters and get it done. You know, this was a great project for me. I really enjoyed making it. It was a little complicated, but you know, the satisfaction is in the finished product, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I've got a full materials list for this and a set of plans available on the website if you're interested. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you next time on Jimbo's Garage.